Welcome to this explainer. As a financial advisor, I constantly see young professionals stressing out over what's really the ultimate wealth building debate: stocks versus real estate. Like, which path is actually going to make you richer in the long run? Well, today we're going to strip away the hype and look at the real math over 20 years. Okay, let's dive into this. If you had 50 grand sitting in your bank account today, what exactly would you do with it? To figure out the right answer, we're going to follow a 20-year case study comparing two completely identical peers. We'll call them Jake and Marcus. Now, they're going to take wildly different paths with their nest egg, and spoiler alert, both of them are going to walk away thinking they made the smarter choice. Let's see who's actually right. Alright, so here is our starting line. Both Jake and Marcus are young professionals living in the exact same city. They both earn a $55,000 salary, and they've both managed to save exactly $50,000. Now, Jake takes his 50 grand and uses it as a 20% down payment on a $250,000 rental property. He takes out a 30-year mortgage at 7%, and he finds a tenant paying $1,800 a month. Marcus, on the other hand, he drops his entire $50,000 into a broad total stock market index fund. No leverage, no keys, just a simple automatic contribution of $300 a month. Fast forward to year one, and right out of the gate, we have this massive collision between feelings and math. On paper, Jake's rent covers his mortgage and leaves him with $470 a month in pure profit. He has his tangible, physical asset. When he goes to a dinner party, he's got a great story to tell, right? He feels like an absolute genius. Marcus gets a boring, totally invisible confirmation email from his brokerage. His friends don't ask him about his investments because there's literally nothing to point at from the car window. Jake feels like he is winning by a mile. But, well, feelings kind of fade when the actual bills arrive. By year 3, Jake collects an impressive $16,920 in gross cash flow after his mortgage payments. And hey, that sounds amazing on a napkin. But once you start carving out the slices for property taxes, insurance, fixing a leaking roof, replacing a water heater, and, dealing with a vacant month between tenants, that massive gross profit shrinks down to a net cash flow of just $2,000 to $4,000. And this is absolutely crucial. Young professionals often only see the top-line numbers on those flashy YouTube thumbnails, but they completely miss the brutal reality of the hidden costs that just drag down actual returns. The average rental actually sits empty about 1 month per year. General maintenance? That's going to eat 1 to 2% of the property's value annually. If you hire a property manager, go ahead and kiss 8 to 10% of your monthly rent goodbye. And let's not even talk about the nightmare scenario of a bad tenant who stops paying and forces an eviction process that can literally wipe out an entire year's profit. Beyond just the day-to-day repairs, you've got capital expenditures, or CAPEX. This is a massive hidden trap. Roofs, furnaces, HVAC systems, they don't last forever. These are guaranteed future replacement costs. By year 5, Jake has already dropped $8,500 on a new roof. These expenses hit in massive 5-figure chunks. If you aren't setting aside a dedicated budget every single month for these guaranteed replacements, you aren't really running a business. You're just running on luck. Now, before you think I'm just completely tearing apart real estate, let's talk about Jake's secret weapon: leverage. Despite all the headaches, Jake used 50 grand to control a $250,000 asset. He has a 5-to-1 leverage ratio, meaning he's using the bank's money to build his wealth. As the property appreciates over time by just 3 or 4% a year, his equity is building massively behind the scenes. This specific mechanic is, for sure, the primary reason real estate has historically created so many millionaires. So as we track this over a 10-year timeline, we are really tracking their emotional pacing too. Jake's life is fast-paced and honestly pretty stressful. He's on his 3rd tenant, he's dealing with plumbing emergencies, and he's effectively working a part-time job as a property manager just to get a modest 3 to 5% cash-on-cash return. Marcus's timeline? Completely incredibly boring for the first 5 years, but by year 7, and especially in the year 10, the compound growth in his index funds begins to absolutely astonish him. The gains on his gains are generating more new wealth than his original contributions. And that brings us to the magic number 0. By year 10, Marcus has built an investment portfolio worth anywhere between $165,000 and $180,000. And how many hours did he spend managing it? 0. How many weekends did he spend under a sink fixing broken pipes? 0. His wealth is accelerating upward on a curve, and he hasn't had to sacrifice a single hour of his personal life to make it happen. Now, what's really interesting here is the climactic twist at the 20-year mark. After 2 decades of tenants, leaky roofs, and market fluctuations, Jake's property equity is sitting roughly around $400,000 to $500,000. Marcus's index fund portfolio, it's grown to approximately $420,000 to $460,000. After 20 long years, their net worth is shockingly similar. They literally ended up in the exact same ballpark. So while the mathematical destination was practically the same, the lifestyle toll to actually get there diverged entirely. Jake worked for his wealth. He took on stress, concentrated his risk in a single zip code, and held a highly illiquid asset. Marcus just waited for his wealth. He enjoyed complete liquidity and personal freedom. And honestly, if Marcus had simply bumped his monthly contribution up by $200, his compounding would have blown Jake completely out of the water. Whereas Jake would have to go out and buy a whole second property just to scale up. But hey, we have to play fair here. Putting my objective advisor hat on for a second, holding stocks requires immense psychological endurance. I mean, think about the brutal 37% drop the stock market suffered back in 2008, or in March 2020 when it dropped 34% in a single month. Watching a $150,000 portfolio plummet to $95,000 in a matter of weeks is absolutely gut-wrenching. Marcus had major volatility. Real estate, on the other hand, doesn't typically send you a daily push notification showing that your house lost 5% of its value right before lunch. And there are absolutely specific strategic scenarios where real estate mathematically crushes the stock market. If you're in a market with a strong 1% rent-to-price ratio, the cash flow favors you from day one. If you treat it like a strict business, leverage house hacking to drop your own living expenses to zero, or utilize 1031 exchanges to roll your profits into new properties completely tax-free, well, real estate becomes this unbelievable legal tax shelter that stock investors simply cannot replicate. So, what is the crucial point to take away today? The real trap isn't stocks and it isn't real estate. The real trap is picking a path based on a viral podcast clip, a flashy YouTube headline, or something your uncle confidently told you over Thanksgiving dinner. If you're a young professional following those soundbites without sitting down and running the full true math for your specific financial situation, your time, and your local market, well, that's the biggest financial mistake you can make. The next time someone tells you that real estate always wins or that index funds always win, you need to ask them just one question. Did you include everything? Because the answer that includes everything is the only one that actually matters. And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on today. Why does this even have to be an either-or debate? Have you ever mapped out what the explosive math looks like when you do both? I'll let you think about that one. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.